over that winter festive period. The game against St Johnstone, Easter Road, and then the draw yesterday. We got out of Ibrox unscathed. We're still 9 points clear at the top of the table, so do wrap up if you are out in Govan. Colin, good new year. Right into it. It wasn't the best Celtic performance that we've seen. A lot of people are saying it's the worst we've been this season, even poorer than that St Mirren game. But for me, going into the game, it was just all about, staying at the top of the table and keeping, whether it be 9 point gap or a 12-point gap.
If you listen to Michael Beale, it could have been a 3-point gap. But no, genuinely, it was so important yesterday to come out of that with at least something. And for long spells of that second half, I thought we were going to come away with absolutely nothing because we were pretty poor. We weren't creating anything. If you take a look at the stats, 2 shots on target, 2 goals. I mean, that sounds clinical, but in a game like that, normally there's the odd chance here and there that kind of you think, oh, that's going to come back and bite us, but we didn't really have anything like that at all. We just sort of lacked the sort of urge going forward to create something, and I don't know what it comes down to, whether it comes down to the fact that we've been playing so many games in such a short period of time since we came back. I don't know what it was yesterday, but obviously delighted with that sort of nearly last-minute equaliser because it does continue that mantra of we'd never stop, and it is showing now that it doesn't matter if it's an equaliser or a winner, this team will fight to the end, and that's exactly what we haven't seen from Celtic teams in the past, and it's great to see it installed in this Celtic team now.
That's important, and obviously, you're saying if you listen to Michael Beale, if you'd have been listening to Stephen Gerrard during his time in Glasgow, remember he was wanting games to finish at 80 minutes, so Celtic would have obviously get beaten yesterday. Lawrence, I was quite surprised because being at the game, like Colin saying, you always think that we're going to score, you always think we're going to have that chance in us. Our performance didn't reflect that, but yet again we pop up with a goal. You're a great believer in Celtic. Did you have that feeling that we were always going to get that chance at the end to try and grab something for the game, or were you a wee bit nervy towards the end of the game?
No, I thought we'd still get it. Listen, in 7 minutes, I thought we could still create something.
Yeah.
I don't think they were even in the game. It was like a training ground exercise up until Hart has his gives us all a wee bit of a heart attack, So up until then, it looked more or less a training ground exercise, didn't it? On possession, we didn't get as many shots as we normally do, but possession, just over 60% possession away from home, and in a game that all we had to do was not lose, which we achieved. Greg Taylor obviously hampered us, give us 4 right-footed defenders. They got a bit of joy up against Juranovic. Probably, there was some decisions that were, could maybe even just have been looked at instead of refusal to look at them. But all in all, you've got to be happily a point and 9 points clear at the beginning of the year.
Lawrence, you've already mentioned it, but we've got to talk about Joe Hart yesterday, Declan. I mean, could he have done anything for the goals? I wouldn't say so, but his sort of lack of command of his area, it brought them back into the game because, as Lawrence was saying, for the first 20-odd minutes, once we'd got the goal, we were strolling, we were creating a lot of chances, we were pinning them back. And then at that point, once you've got a stadium like Ibrox silent, you need to keep it silent. You have to stop them because realistically, and Celtic know it as well, if you get 60,000 behind you at Parkhead, that's a 12th man. Now, I don't know how many men they had yesterday because some people tell you the VAR and the refs and all that all count in there as well, but when they've got 50,000 behind them, that's an intimidating atmosphere. And Hart is one of our more experienced players, really has to step up. He's been involved in major European tournaments, he's been involved in World Cups, Euros, he's played at the highest level. And it was almost as if he was scared to come out off his line yesterday. And that's not what you need in a game like that.
There was a number of moments, Colin. We know that Rangers like to fire balls into the box. There was a good few where you're thinking, just come and collect the ball. Yep. You can do it. And he stood in his line. But that moment, Tony's highlighted it here, 25, 26 minutes, whenever it was. I don't know what he's doing. And we know that this Celtic team like to play out for the back, Lawrence. But as Colin rightly says, he's the most experienced player in this team, and making an error like that, which I think really did change the game. You obviously mentioned Greg Taylor going off. I thought that impacted us, but we'll get on to talk about that kind of balance in defence when you had two right-footed players playing your left side of defence. But that mistake from Hart just seemed to give Rangers that wee bit of hope, because they did absolutely nothing in the game up until then. We'd got what we were hoping for, that early goal through Dies and Maeda. And as Colin says, when you're up against it, when you've got the atmosphere against you, we had quiet in Ibrox, that got them all back off their seats, and then they started to come back and grow into the game a wee bit.
Yeah, it seemed to give them a bit of belief that they might be able to get something. Up until that point, it was really comfortable. I thought Hart's just got to move it quicker. Cracking keeper as he is, he does have these moments, doesn't he, throughout the season? But we've drawn one, lost one so far in the league. It's not huge, but if he doesn't do that, I don't see him coming back into the game. It was close to me. I was thinking, this is training ground. This is as easy as I've seen get a game at Ibrox, because we were just off on nothing up until then. And yeah, it seemed to spark the crowd, and the team fed off of that. So yeah, Joe, come on, mate. I know you've pulled us out on occasions, but bar for that, I think we'd easily got the 3 points. I think it was so pivotal in the game, what was happening, and it was absolutely out of nothing. So yeah, just wake up, Joe, because he just seemed to be as if he was sleeping. I don't know if he was getting so bored. Who knows? But it wasn't very commanding in his box either. There was a couple of times he did come for it, but he let the player get in front of him. Thank God they didn't get it in target. But yeah, he needs to up his concentration, shall we say, because that was, it was borderline criminal, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And Colin, I think a lot of people were looking at an incident like that. And other times he's maybe looked a wee bit too cool, with the ball at his feet in the box, and saying, is that an area of the park that Celtic do need to be looking at possibly in the summer months to take us to that next level of football? Because, we keep going back to it. Joe Hart has been an absolutely fantastic signing for Celtic since he came in. He brought that experience, that leadership. It was important to his last season. He's been important this season. But if we're possibly wanting to go to that next level and do the things that the manager wants his goalkeeper to do, is it going to be that person for us?
I don't think so. Obviously, the experience that he brings is second to none, right? But when he can't put that experience into action on the park, then you're thinking, right, the next thing that you could possibly do is use that experience to bring through the next big player. Now, we've spoke about the kind of future of guys like Toby Oluwayemi. We've seen Benji Siegrist coming through, and it was interesting seeing Siegrist wasn't on the bench yesterday. I never actually found out what happened to him. I don't know if it was an illness or what it was. But I really want to see Siegrist, at least for the second half of this season, pushing Joe Hart for that number one slot. Otherwise, what's the point? I mean, he's a great goalkeeper. We've seen it. Out with Celtic, he would be number one choice at every other club in the league. So he's got to try and push Joe Hart, whether it's a case of Ange sees Hart as his number one, and until he makes a terrible mistake, he'll never be dropped, then that's on the manager. But I'd love to see Siegrist getting a bit of a run of it. And as you say, looking ahead to that, could he be the guy to take us forward in Europe? Could he be the guy to take us forward in the league? I'm not sure. But you can't tell because he's not had a run yet. So although there's people saying maybe we need a new goalkeeper, I'd like to see Siegrist at least get a chance first before we take a look at that. So it could be, as you say, the summer before you change it.
Yeah, it could be. John's came in here in the comments. He said that he believes that the next priority sign has to be a keeper. Lawrence, what's your take on that? I still think that Celtic need a striker, and possibly just looking at Georgios Giacomakis coming on yesterday. We've heard every mumble and grumble about him. If he's, we're not at a situation in the goalkeeping department, but we know that Joe Hart's wanting actively probably out of the club. So for me, it's probably looking at a striker next. But would you agree that possibly to take Celtic to that next level, if we're looking at European football next season, in the summer months, a goalkeeper might need to be a priority for us?
Yeah, I think definitely strikers where we're looking just now. We're looking at South Korean boy apparently talks are ongoing. There's apparently Slovak, there's boy Norway. So there's a few strikers being linked. But with Joe Hart, it's kind of, he's not going to go on forever. So we need to start planning for him leaving. That was a big moment in the game. It didn't, arguably it cost us 2 points. You might say it didn't cost us because we got away with a point, but I think that's cost us 2 points. That's really sparked him into life. So yeah, you'd want to have a look and see what Siegrist is going to give us. We know Ange's got the scouts working much like his team. They never stop. They will be out there looking and seeing who's available. Will Toby make it? I don't know, but how long realistically does Hart have left? And I'm 18 months at a push, maybe. So yeah, it's something we've definitely got to be planning for and trying to identify whether it's Siegrist or someone else comes up on the radar to come in and replace Hart, because it happens a lot with Joe, the ball at his feet, doesn't it? He gives us a scare. Doesn't often cost us, but I think it cost us yesterday.
Colin, just in terms of, Siegrist, I think that the biggest thing you see in the squad at this point in time is players that are pushing each other, and you like that in this Celtic team, that there's not, maybe apart from Kyogo at this point in time, we've already, touched on Yakimakis, knows that they're a stick on to play, each and every game, but certainly in the goalkeeping department, Siegrist has played for Celtic in the League Cup this season, but it seems to be, Hart is nailed on, which, you want a number one keeper throughout the season, but you also want to know that backup is pushing for it, which just doesn't seem to be the case just now.
Yeah, it's quite surprising as well, because he came in with this sort of mantra that he wasn't going to play second fiddle. He wanted to fight for the jersey, and now you're kind of sitting here in January and you're going, you've played 2 games, that's not really pushing for the jersey. There's never been a point where it's been maybe like the time where we're playing 3 games a week in November, and you're thinking, right, Siegrist might come in for one of these games and just show what he's got. Maybe it'd be one of the home games. But you're sitting here now and you're 2 weeks away from a semi-final. You're then, another week away from another Scottish Cup tie. If you go with the fact that Siegrist is your cup goalkeeper, you'd expect him to play in both of those games against Kilmarnock and against Morton. And then in between that, you've got
St Mirren on the Wednesday night
as well. So the games like that, you're thinking, right, this is maybe his chance to claim a stake to the jersey. And if he goes on and keeps 3 clean sheets, then it's going to be very difficult to see him then being dropped out again. As you say, Joe Hart, he's got all this experience. He's played at the highest level. But I felt as though he just didn't want to come off his line yesterday. He felt as if it just wasn't the right kind of time for him to come off and do it. And if you don't put that confidence from your goalkeeper into a back 4, especially a back 4 yesterday that was very sort of, I'd say new to an extent, with Juranovic at left back coming on for Taylor, Alistair Johnson making his debut, you need the confidence in your goalkeeper for that to brush into your back 4 as well. Otherwise, when they're coming forward, do you trust your goalkeeper to play it back to him? It's just one of those ones, Declan, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Lawrence, what's your take on this one? We'll go into the defence now, and Robert's coming in the comments to see here, if Bernabei was good fit enough for the bench, why did they not replace Taylor? He believes that was not acceptable, but yesterday standing there, I wanted Juranovic to come on. I thought, he'd already played left back at Ibrox before. That's a sub I would have made. In hindsight now, probably not, but managers get paid to make big calls. He didn't have a great performance at all. He was arguably Celtic's worst man in the park, Josip Juranovic. But, again, something that you've mentioned, Lawrence, is the balance at the back 4, that you ended up with 2 right-footed players in the left side of your defence.
Yeah, I think he's maybe bringing him on because he's looking, you're 1-0 up, aren't you? So I think he's better. He thought he's better defensively than Bernabei. And he's maybe looking at that and thought, that's why I'm bringing Juranovic on over Bernabei. As you say, hindsight, yeah, you'd love to have seen what Bernabei could have done, wouldn't you? Because Juranovic didn't do much. They really seem to target him. They get a bit of joy out of it. They get, what we say, more good fortune with their penalty. Should we say, it's debatable. I've looked at it a few times and I'm not convinced it's a penalty. Obviously, the ref never needs to look at these things at Ibrox to decide it's a penalty. But yeah, I think hindsight, yeah, I'd like to have seen Bernabei on, but I can understand why Ange made this up. You're 1-0 up. I think it's better defensively than Bernabei, and he thought, yeah, I can rely on you. You've done it at Ibrox in this position, so yeah, on you go.
Colin, do you think right call for the manager. I certainly wanted them to bring Juranovic on, and I actually was surprised to see Johnson start yesterday. I thought Johnson had a really great debut, especially getting thrown in there. It was the first time, he played for Celtic. Thrown into a derby game, always difficult, but I thought Johnson had a decent game. But would that have been the sub you'd have made, bringing on Juranovic in that left-hand side?
Yeah, at the time I was saying it was Juranovic is probably the best option, just for the fact that he had the experience, and obviously he's played there before in this game. So you're thinking, right, okay, not a straight like for like, but at least it offers that security to the back four. But yeah, yesterday I don't know what it was with Juranovic. He just didn't seem to be himself, and I've
New
noticed
Year
that.
wine possibly, Colin. I think he was maybe still on it.
Well, it could have been either that or his head was somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? It must be difficult because he has received a lot of attention for his great performances in the World Cup. And when you know that these teams are sort of circling around you, and he is at that stage in his career where he's probably got one big move left in him, and you can say, right, it's easy enough to put that behind you in a game like that yesterday, but some players don't have the mental capability to do so, and it didn't look as if he does as well. I know he's obviously had a bit of an injury. He missed the fourth place playoff. But yeah, the question for Bernabe is, what more does he have to do? I mean, if Juranovic is genuinely carrying an injury, if his head's not in the right space, the gaffer knows that.
Mm-hmm.
So Bernabe, what is he there to do? I mean, it's a lot of money that we've invested into someone like Alexander Bernabe. For him not to be trusted in that position yesterday, it takes me back to right at the start of Ange's run, when we used to kind of pack the bench with guys from the Neil Lennon era that we knew were never going to get a sniff. So that when we were kind of struggling towards the end of the games, we were like, right, maybe a Yeti's going to get 10 minutes here, maybe Sorrow's going to get 10 minutes here.
And hopefully get booked if you've got them in your coupon.
Well, that as well. But they never ever came off the bench. They were just there to make the numbers up. And I wonder if that is the case with some of these players just now. Obviously, Ange is looking at bringing in the right sort of players that he wants. Obviously, Iwata couldn't get his international clearance in time. We saw Kobayashi on the bench. Johnson starts. So you're thinking, right, he's accepted that these players aren't going to be part of his first team plans going forward, but he still needs 9 players on the bench. Does he go to players like that, or does he go to players like Vata and Boston Law, who we've seen on the bench beforehand? It was almost a case of Bernabe was there yesterday to make the numbers up.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to bring in Kevin from the penalty spot to let us know that Ange also confirmed that JJ was not 100% pre-match yesterday. But as you say, Colin, the manager knew that going into the game. He made that sub in the game. So it kind of makes you wonder a wee bit, Bernabe's place in the team, because you'd imagine now that if Taylor's going to be out for a wee while, Bernabe needs to get a run of game time now. You need to turn him and let him play football. And it'll be interesting to see what comes of that. But, it would have been interesting to see what happened in the whole game when Bernabe came on. But again, it's hindsight, it happens. I thought that changed the game a bit for us too. Taylor was fairly decent. For a while, I thought Taylor has been played the season yesterday, enhanced that for me. I don't know if this comment comes from a former music teacher and Taylor's performance, or his wee comment to Alfredo as he was helped off the park.
What was he saying then?
I don't know, Lawrence. Do you
know what? See, as a fellow Inverclydean, it was a very common term of phrase that we've used down here.
So you can relate this?
It was basically told to, in no certain terms, shut your hole and lose a bit of weight. We've been all told
very
that.
Well put, Colin. Well put.
All told that down this way. But no, Greg Taylor, I agree. Greg Taylor's been one of our standout performers this year by a country mile. But I tell you what, hands up and congratulations to the team at T for Tims, because within about 90 minutes of that game being finished, they were already selling that on a T-shirt.
Yep.
So that is very quick. The printers must have been working overtime, because yesterday's a bank holiday.
Aye, that's it. And are you in commission for getting that wee shout out there, Colin? You're getting a cut of this.
10% off you use code. No, I'm kidding.
Did you say there was a delay in a registration?
Oh, hey. Lawrence, you could do a whole show on that, mate.
I thought you were going to say if you use the code Fat Boy, but I don't know if that would probably work. Lawrence, you know, when we're talking about this Celtic defence, bringing Drew here, Cameron Carter-Vick is absolutely outstanding. And I thought Starfelt had a fairly decent game. I see there's mixed reaction to him in the comments. What's your take, firstly, in the penalty with Starfelt?
First viewing, I thought, I could be a pen. But, you know, with technology these days, refs aren't rushed into giving decisions. You don't get the luxury of viewing it again and on viewing it again. If there's contact, you know, he's standing on Starfelt's foot. It's to say it was soft. I don't really think covers it. I think, you know, on viewing, if it's going to VAR, I wouldn't expect it to be given. But yeah, big Karen, immense again, helped out. You know, I think Starfelt having Juranovic on his left hand side for part of the game didn't help him. Whereas cracking debut from a right back. So yeah, but on the pen on Starfelt, I think if that goes to VAR, put it this way, I think if it's in the other box, we're never getting it.
There's potential, I think, exactly what you're saying that, Colin. You know, Starfelt was kind of the guy at the middle of the VAR controversy because he's given away a penalty. He's not, I don't think, you know, looked at. When it does get looked at, you know, it needs to be a clear and obvious error in the referee's part because he's pointed to the spot already. Whereas John Beaton could have taken his time, went and had a look at it first before pointing to the spot, but right away, you know, he points to the spot, so there needs to be a clear and obvious error. And I think, if I'm right, it might even be Starfelt's shot that comes off Golson's hands. What is your take in both incidents? Starfelt first.
If you look at the sort of build up to the Starfelt incident, as I was saying to you guys before he came on, Starfelt's actually got a hold of the jersey at first, and he lets it go just before you get into the box. So that was the first claim that I'd seen for the penalty. So if you're going to bring it back to that, it was a free kick on the edge of the box. But the fact that he then goes into the box, for me, the issue there was that Starfelt didn't stay on his feet. As soon as he dives in, you give the referee the chance to give that penalty against you. And we've known what John Beaton's like. He doesn't need a second opportunity to give a penalty against Celtic. We've seen it time and time again, and that's not a conspiracy. It's not anything. Just look at some of the decisions he's gave against us over the years. And as you said, the fact that it goes to VAR, they've got to prove that it was a complete and utter mistake from the referee's part. And referees in Scottish football, they've given penalties like that, not just against us, but against other teams. If that isn't given right away, I don't think that is overturned into a penalty. Because as you say, the foot is caught on to Starfelt's. He's already going down. The fact that Starfelt slides in then brings him down even further. But I don't think that's a penalty. I don't think there's contact there for the tackle to be a foul. I wouldn't see it anywhere else in the park. And I think, as I said, if it wasn't given right away, I don't think it would have been given by VAR.
Lawrence, what's your take on it? You know, we've spoken a lot on here about VAR, but I think yesterday again, it proved how bad it is. And, you know, the penalty for me is a penalty, but it was surprising no too many Celtic players actually claimed to it. But looking at it, and again, is it a case, and I want to ask you this, that after the World Cup, they've had a meeting and said, with the handball rule, we'll change it and be a wee bit more lenient because, you know, we were getting a penalty against us with Burnham against Dundee United, the O'Reilly one. There's a list, an endless list. You were possibly odds on to get a penalty against Celtic before the break. But even if they have changed the rules, you know, during the World Cup, there's been absolutely zero communication to that as paying football fans.
Nah, there's no way that they've changed the rules. I think it's VAR in itself outside of one team, it does seem to be being used and things are being reviewed, and it should result in more penalties, because it's there to pick up mistakes. But I think it's, there's a litany of instances that happen at Ibrox that just don't get reviewed, where the players have handled the ball in the box, and it just doesn't go to a VAR review. The ref doesn't even need to go and have a look at it. And you assume, what is it that a Rangers player handling the ball in the box that the ref doesn't need to see it a second time to decide it's not a penalty? Is that just a default position? Not a penalty. It's hand to ball. For me, the only thing he's not done is caught it. You know, the argument should maybe have held that, be getting both hands on it. But would we have got a penalty if we'd have held it? I doubt it. You know, and why the refs just refuse to look at these incidents, it's probably the most frustrating thing. You're going, well, it's a subjective decision, if you're meant to go and view this.
It's not his job, Lawrence. Did you not hear?
I was just about to come on to that, Colin, but I don't know if everybody's seen the video clip, but we were talking about that before we came on. It's not up to me, mate, or something along the lines he says, isn't it?
So,
which I think sums up John Beaton's performance in that game. You know, it's not up to me. You know, the man that's the referee in the middle of it. And again, Lawrence, you were, Colin, you'd said before we came on, tell the listeners about was it the Aberdeen game you were talking about, the VAR, where it was set up?
Aye, so the Aberdeen game, I don't know if anyone's seen it on Twitter, but basically they found a sort of, what would you say, an old surveillance style black van on one of the main roads in Aberdeen, with the doors open and the game's been shown, and that's where the VAR was based. So instead of it being like in England where it's all based at St George's Park or wherever else it is, it seems to just be in a sort of local area not too far away from the ground. So if you see a black van kicking about maybe the Celtic Park area, then you'll know who's in there watching, giving maybe a penalty or not a penalty.
Probably not a penalty if it's in Celtic.
Most likely.
Colin.
See, going back to that, on the actual penalty incident, the fact that you're sitting here and Chris Boyd said it was a penalty. Sean Maloney says it was a penalty. All these people who previously have maybe said I'm unsure about that.
Especially Chris Boyd. I think
that's one Chris Boyd. I mean,
really says
that must have really hurt him to say that yesterday. I don't understand what it is, because yes, there's the sort of IFAB rule where if you're protecting your face, it's meant to be that it's not a penalty, right? I totally understand that. But he looked as if he was about to spike the ball back over the net at volleyball yesterday.
A big volleyball player, aye.
He was making himself as big as possible to try and block the ball. So that, for me, when you've got to take a second look at that, there's no other way it can be seen.
And even the direction of the ball, Colin, the way it goes, you know, it goes up in the air when he does it. You know, it's not as if it, you know, I think that's something else that, you know, a referee should be looking at.
Regardless of whether it's a penalty, it's the refusal to even consider looking at the screens to decide this. Rangers,
and that's why they call him there as well.
The box.
Yep.
We'll not even look at it. You know,
and that's Colin in his ear, Lawrence, saying, don't even bother looking at it. I'm telling you, it's not a penalty. Which,
but look at Hibs. Hibs were reaching. Again, another player handled the ball in the box. The Rangers player.
See, when you take a look at it, right?
You're kind of going, why aren't you even looking at them?
See, when you do look at it, right, every time they go to the VAR screen in the stadiums, they change their mind because they've seen it twice. Now, as fans, we get to see it. How many times did we get to see that instant yesterday? At least a dozen, if not more. Right? And at the time, if you're thinking, right, maybe it wasn't a penalty first time off, by the time you see it again, then there you go. You're thinking, right, well, I never saw that in real time, but now that I've had the chance to review it, it is a penalty. So if we've got the opportunity to do that and the facility is there for the referee to do that as well, then it has to be taken, no matter what this person's saying in their ear. Because at the end of the day, who's going to get the blame for that yesterday? John Beaton. Now, what's he going to turn around and say? Oh, it wasn't me, it was the guy in the black van sitting outside on Paisley Road West.
No, we know it's not up to him. So it wasn't his fault at all, was it?
You know? Why are these guys getting paid the best part of £1,000 to shirk out of making these decisions?
That's it. That's exactly it.
Well, so it's always the ref's final decision. He can say to the bar, no, I'm going to go and have a look at this. You know, it's always, I mean, something's happened in the box that's a subjective decision and he's decided not to look at it. But it's not just John Beaton. The amount of refs that, you know, have done it, let's be honest, for Rangers since they've come in, we'll just not look at it. You know, and if you don't look at it, you're not going to give the decision, are you? It's just a refusal to actually use the technology when a handball happens in a box from a Rangers player. And you know, you'd expect Celtic to be calling it out sooner rather than later, because it's almost week in, week out. You know, I think Beale's first few games in charge, it looks like Goldson, for the winner, uses his arm to play the ball to Arfield, arguably rescues some points against Hibs. You know, Hibs could have been 3-1 up if the penalty's given. It's just, you know, it appears that they'll review decisions against other teams, just not against Rangers.
Which is evident in facts, Lawrence, because I've not considered a penalty at all this season.
Yeah, and it's not that they've not handled the ball in the box or committed fouls in the box. It's just that, they've not been given.
And I said this at the time, long before we were talking about when VAR was coming in. Scottish football was not ready for it.
No,
because the referees
it's not got the referees to perform it.
The referees are such a poor level in Scotland, and we saw it before VAR came in earlier in the season. Some of the decisions that were getting made across the league, we're seeing it now that they've got this technology. You have to bring in referees from other leagues that have used this technology before. To train our referees on the best case of how to use the technology that's in front of them. Because, the English League took a long time to get it right, but now they have. And you take a look at that Liverpool-Brentford game yesterday, and each of the decisions that went to VAR was correctly given. Now, you go to Germany, where they take a matter of seconds to get it right as well.
Mm-hmm.
They've done it in the MLS, they've done it in loads of different leagues across the world. When they're bringing it into a new league, these experienced heads should be the ones to come over to help implement it so that you can actually train the referees up to this certain standard. Because it just looks as if you've given somebody that's totally incapable of actually refereeing a proper game this extra technology, and they don't know what to do with it. As you're saying, if you've got the technology there, and look at that screen again yesterday, is it because you don't know that that's part of your job to go and do it?
The thing is, they do know. Look at the Hearts penalties given against us. They do know how to use it. There's no argument. I mean, there's been numerous penalties given since VAR's been introduced. They do know how to use the technology, but it's just when one team's involved, they refuse to use it. So you can't say, what was it, 2 penalties in the Hearts game? There's a retake. They definitely know how to use VAR, and they know how to implement it. And you've had it in other games. The penalties. It's 0.62 penalties a game since VAR comes in. Penalties have been up. They know how to use the technology. There's no argument about that. It's being used. It's not being used when it involves a certain team. That's the argument, and it's as Declan says, the facts speak for themselves on that. The only team not to concede a penalty. And they refuse to review these decisions that involve them.
I think that's possible that there's something but both you're saying, because Colin, I always kind of look at it. I mean, the Scottish Cup's going to be an example of this when we play Morton, that we are getting being in the telly, but we've got VAR in, right? And I think Dundee United play, is it University of Stirling or whoever that they've got? And unless Dundee United want to foot the bill or tell University of Stirling to pay up, they'll not have VAR. Mm-hmm. So that even tells you about how seriously, the SAFA in terms of the cup competitions taking VAR, that if you're not on the telly because of the cost, you foot the bill or you've not got it type thing. And then obviously the lower league clubs who don't have the technology already installed won't have it completely. So even then, as a balance of how seriously are you taking this at the top level of VAR, because you get the Scottish Cup competition, which again, if you're looking at a team like Darvel who's got Aberdeen, if there's a decision in that game which could have taken the game to a replay, could have taken Darvel through into the next round of the way Aberdeen are playing just now, that's going to cost teams what could be livelihoods it's taking, whatever else is. Again, that's that argument in for it. And what Lawrence says there, they have they've used it, and in a particular case with a particular team, that they just don't look at situations. We'll draw the big line under VAR there. I think we've covered it enough in terms of that, because I'm sure everybody will be talking about it all week. Lawrence, on a lighter note, Maeda, what a finish. He's had his critics at Celtic. I've always been one who tried to back him as much. Tony is in the comments, who everybody seems to have caught on with that catchphrase, thank you, Dyson, so it was certainly a case of thank you, Dyson, when he put that ball in the back of the net. Yeah,
striker's finish, Maybe Liam's right. Maybe he is a striker because he finished like a striker. I tell you what, if I was Bale, though, I'd be taking strips off Tabin, He used to pull them down. Goldson's cover. And so, but I suppose that's for the Rangers to worry about. But cracking finish. Yeah, fully merits his place in the team. The World Cup seems to have done him the world of good.
Mm-hmm. Colin, what was your take? It was a great finish, but I think Lawrence is right. I think, Captain Fantastic, who likes a shout at everybody else apart from his cell. And it's our old mate Alfredo, who it's a cracking assist from him into Dyson's feet, but he's still got a hell of a lot to do, and just the way he runs at that Rangers defence, and it's a great finish at the end of it as well.
I mean, when you look at it back, that ball's Tavernier's to win every single day of the week, and he bricks it. He totally bricks it with Maeda coming at him, and then with the sort of momentum that Maeda's got, he gets himself right into the box, and out comes McGregor, and he just slots it under him. And the confidence that this guy's got from having such a good World Cup is pivotal, because I think for me, Maeda is very much a confidence-based player. And I think when you see him, when he's having a good couple of games, the head's up, he gets himself involved a lot more. He's coming down the left-hand side yesterday. He had Tavernier in his back pocket yesterday alongside his keys. It was just unbelievable for the first 25, 30 minutes. Some of the balls that he was putting across were outstanding. And I think we've found where his best position is in that team. It's not necessarily as a natural winger. It's not necessarily as a natural striker, but it is in that forward position where he's got the free rein to sort of close down the defenders. He's got the free rein to come in on the goalkeeper, to just be a nuisance in that area, because he'll pick up the loose balls. If teams want to play out from the back and Celtic are pressing them, there is going to be loose balls. He is going to pick them up. He's going to get the opportunity to drive forward. And the one thing that I thought last season and the start of this season that was missing out his game was his composure. And ever since the World Cup, I mean, the goal against Hibs, unbelievable. The composure to put that in the back of the net yesterday. He's not the finished article yet, Declan, and he's still relatively young as well. So if we can continue to help him develop, I think we've got a great player on our hands, but we're going to have to accept that his inconsistency is going to come through, and we're just going to need to enjoy him when he's playing at this level at the minute.
And that's it about him, Colin. You know, as you say, that there is inconsistencies in his game. You can see that. But for me, and I keep going back to it ever since he signed last year, his work rate and his desire to work hard in your team, I think just makes him a really, really important player for Celtic. Ange knows exactly what he gets out of him. A couple of comments coming in here on him. Quinny's came in to say Dyson needs confidence, momentum. I think that's certainly something you've seen in his game when he does get a run of games. You see him get better and better. And Alan Robertson coming in to say Maeda is full of confidence, love his work ethic. Lawrence, I've not been on since the Hibs game, and I really didn't think he had that in his locker, that strike through there. And yesterday again, you know, how many times have we probably seen Dyson go through one-on-one with a goalie and either sky it, miss it, hit it off the goalkeeper, something. But that yesterday was absolute pinpoint perfection, and he seemed to really annoy a couple of people in that corner between the Govan stand and the Copeland.
Yeah, listen, this is the games you want him to do it, and it's the bigger games, isn't it? You want him to be able to do that. Since the World Cup, he's not looked back. He has that header against Hibs, you know, doesn't go in, and then he just gets a hold of that ball, and what a shot. And yeah, he's just carried it on into this game. So if he keeps finishing like this, yeah, he's going to be coming up the scoring charts, isn't he? And he is undroppable for the work rate, for everything he gives us. He's just in the embodiment of what Ange wants, players that don't stop. And really pacey, but what Tavernier's doing, you just you charge for the ball, you take the forward out, you know. It's early in the game. I doubt it. Plus, it's John Beaton. You know, there's no chance of him getting a yellow card. Crazy, but yeah, Maeda just goes by him if he's not there. And Goldson didn't make much attempt either. And just a class finish, wasn't it? And you know, it should have put us on easy street. And it seemed to do up until Hart has his dalliance in the ball.
Yep, and Colin, you know, it couldn't have been a better start for Celtic at that point in time. You're thinking you wanted to go there, you wanted to get the early goal. It's a great finish, and then, you know, you really want us to kick on. We went there before, not as early as that, but Edward getting that goal in the 2-0 game. Obviously, we bounced right back in April time through Big Rogic. But, you know, it couldn't have been an any better start. And a few people's even coming in here to say that Maeda and Moy both improved post-World Cup. Certainly impressed by Aaron Moy when he came on for the bench yesterday. And again, you know, we've heard the manager talk about a certain number of players, you know, coming back and being important for the second half of the season. I think Haksabanovic is another one of those. Abelgard was in that conversation before. it looked as though he was heading back to his parent club. But, even for Daizen Maeda, is it possibly the case that he's just one of these players that needs to get started in a season? Because we saw him off the back of a full season for us, when he signed in January time. Is he just maybe a slow start, and when he gets up to that level, you'll get yourself a cracking player in your hands?
I think so, and as I was saying earlier, I think he is pretty much a confidence player. As you say, last season he came in off the back of 29 goals in the J League, and then scores on his debut. Things like that, that's going to keep your confidence going, and he popped up with the odd goal here and there. I think he ended up with 8 in the second half of the season last year, some pivotal goals, especially away at Livingston. And his pace and his work rate was one of the things that really won over the fan base right away. And if you can win over the fan base, then you are going to get that time to settle into the team. We were always saying, just wait till we see Kyogo and Maeda with a full pre-season behind them. And yeah, they didn't kind of get started that well to begin with. But as you say, after the World Cup, Maeda's just been a totally different player. Obviously, that experience of playing at the best level possible is great. And Moy as well. Moy, for me, yesterday, I was really surprised to see Moy dropped. I thought of...
It was what we needed yesterday, wasn't he, at that point in the game? I
think if you take a look at the midfielders at the minute, and I don't like saying this because I think he is a great talent, but he just maybe needs a bit of a rest at the minute, is Matt O'Reilly. I just don't think Matt O'Reilly's been that influential in the games recently. And if I had to pick a midfield yesterday, I'd probably went with Hatate, McGregor and Moy, because Moy's one of these players where I don't think he's got bags of pace, but he has this footballing intelligence, and you saw it for the equalising goal yesterday's. Just getting into the right positions, putting the ball across, getting into the box, getting into the danger area. He very, very rarely gives a ball away. He's always looking for the ball. He's always picking the right pass. And I just think if we had him for the full 90 minutes yesterday, or even 75 or whatever we could have got out of him, I don't think they would have been as kind of into the game in the second half as what they were, because our biggest problem in the second half was every second ball kept falling to a Rangers player.
We weren't hit it at all with the second balls.
We couldn't get the ball in the second half, so having someone like Moy in there might have made a bit of a difference.
Yeah, and he seemed to enjoy, after the match, a couple of players I know up in the Grampian Emerald up in Aberdeen. I don't know why Martin Boyle was up in Aberdeen, considering his team would get absolutely scalped in Edinburgh Derby. But he had Moy in the FaceTime after the game yesterday, and they were singing Aaron Moy to him, so he seemed to quite enjoy that, which I thought was quite cool. These things that happens in pubs. Of course, you wouldn't find any us free in pubs, would you now, gentlemen? And I'm not sitting here with a wee bit of a sore head after yesterday.
No, me neither. No.
But we're battering through it. But yeah, and Lawrence, Colin, you say about Moy, potentially being dropped, but something I've not spoken about was what the manager mentioned yesterday was the sickness bug in our camp, and that effect on it. Now, Lawrence, you said on Friday that you thought that Ange would play James Forrest, but I certainly don't think he would have touched him had that not have ravaged to our camp, which was the obvious thing to me, that James Forrest for me isn't starting at Ibrox unless there's an issue like that, and that is why you didn't see Abada or Jota in the starting 11, and Colin, it's possibly why he didn't see Moy, but I think that did play a bit of an effect in our camp yesterday, Lawrence.
I think Forrest started because Johnson was behind him. Bit of unknown quantity of how he'd react. I think defensively, he just gives you much more than Abada. Didn't have his best game, but I think defensively done okay. He probably helped Alistair Johnson settle into the game. And that was a solid debut from him. So I think James played his part there. Yeah, wasn't surprised to see him getting subbed off, but if we'd known that Johnson was going to settle in like that, would I shout for Forrest to start? Probably not. But you don't know how he's going to handle the game or the atmosphere. Yeah, saying that, there is obviously a bug going around. We weren't at best. There was a few players missing from the bench that you maybe expected there. So yeah, if they're feeling a bit fatigued or not 100% because of the bug, it's going would have an impact on how we play. But looking at the game back, we had 61% possession. It wasn't a training game up until Hearts, era. They've been lucky to get a penalty. We've been unlucky not to get one. At no point did I actually think, they're going to take the 3 points for us.
Colin, what was your take? And the Forest inclusion, I certainly think it was due to that reason, because if you play Jota, for instance, in that side, he made a difference to us as well when he came on. He, leads to the equaliser. But I think Ange really likes that versatility he gets when he plays Maeda and Jota and when Haksabanovic is in that conversation. Forrest can do it too. He can switch wingers around. Rangers did it yesterday when Juranovic came on and he fired Kent over to that side to try and give Juranovic even more problems. But I certainly think that sickness bug caused problems yesterday. And we spoke about Bernabe earlier. We don't know what his situation is. I know a lot of people say if they're on the bench, they must be fit enough. But you don't know what that's possibly did to the team, and that was something that the manager confirmed before the game, that there was that sickness bug, flu bug, whatever it was, going through our team.
The thing is, I mean, you saw what happened to the French team in the final of the World Cup. They were saying that they were ravished with the flu bug as well, and for the first 60 minutes, they were totally out of the game. And I take it must have been when the old paracetamol or ibuprofen kicked in. Yeah. That's when Mbappe went on to have that great game. But like games like that yesterday, for me, showed why James Forrest is a good part of the squad, but a good part of the squad at best. And I don't think he's a starter for the games like against Rangers. For me, when you take a look at the sort of what Jota did when he came on, and whether he was ill or if he wasn't ill or if he's recovering from injury or what it was, but those sort of 15, 20 minutes that he was on, if he can offer that at the start of the game, sometimes that's enough just to put the game to bed. I mean, you saw what happened in the 4-0 game at Celtic Park earlier in the season. The game was put to bed by half-time. Now, if you can only get 45 minutes out of maybe a Jota, then I'd like to have seen that ahead of starting James Forrest. I understand, Lawrence, what you're saying about, obviously, Alistair Johnston's debut, but when you look at the way that Johnston wants to play football, he's very attack-minded, and I think the sort of combination between them two would have caused a lot of problems for back post Barisic yesterday. I just think that between the two of them, it would have pinned them right back. And Jota, obviously, the determination and the drive for that equalising goal from him is outstanding. To think that he starts the attack, plays it in, Moy puts it, tries to put it across. It's Jota that's there fighting for the ball with Goldson before it's squared back into Kyogo, who does very well to put his laces through it and put it into the top of the net. So just having that extra wee bit of quality can make the difference. And when you think back to the sort of players that we've had at Celtic that are kind of similar to Jota and the impact that they've had in these games before, you think back to Paddy Roberts when he was here and he played that fantastic ball right through the heart of the defence. I think it was to Griffiths, for one of his goals. The one that was squared back to Sinclair in the 2-1 game as well. When you've got a team, especially the way that Beale set them up for the last 15 minutes, where, as you're saying, Lawrence, we had a lot of the ball, but that's because they took basically every single attacker off and just went, we're 2-1 up, we're just going to sit here and defend this. And we've seen this happen with Celtic time and time before, especially in Europe, where we've gave it the last 20 minutes and just went, do you know what, we're winning, we'll just try and defend it, we'll just try and see it out. But when you've got the quality coming off the bench, like a Jota or if Haksabanovic was there, these are the guys that can totally change the game. And Jota did that when he came on. Him and Moy, the combination was brilliant. And obviously, Kyogo, left on the park for a reason, takes his goal really, really well.
Is that something that
was in form, was he? He was out of form before the game.
I think he said the bug for 2 weeks, Jota.
I think Jota, as much as he's not been consistently creating assists or scoring goals, I still think he's been a key part of the team, though. I still think that a lot of the attacks come down his side. A lot of the creativity that we do comes down his side as well. And put it this way, if you've got 2 or 3 players closing him down, it opens up the space for other players because they know he's the key guy. They know if they can keep him quiet, then it should help them out. But the way that we play football, that 2-3 passes opens it up for someone else to have a crack at goal.
I'd agree with that in Jota, and I think Lawrence, he's had that bug for 2 weeks or something that the manager said even before the game as well. So he might have been struggling potentially with that. But Giakoumakis coming on, Lawrence, would you surprise? Because a lot of people probably thought with Jacko getting introduced into the game that the manager would have kept, would have taken Kyogo off. But his finish at the end is absolutely excellent. I mean, for all the stuff that's went in his direction about him not being clinical enough, if you ever look at his goal scoring record, I don't know what that will be now, maybe 15 and 18 or something. Colin, I can't mind what it'll be.
Yeah.
Is it 15 and 18?
It must be. It can't be far off. I think he was, before this run, he was 10 and 14. So what would be 13 and 17 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Somebody tell us in the comments. Somebody will have the stats there. But and again, there was everything, he hadn't played well against Rangers, hadn't scored against Rangers, but yesterday was his first proper chance, I would say, at having a good go at Rangers. His first game against Rangers, he's played on the left-hand side. If you remember this season, he gets subbed off for Giakoumakis. But just in terms of that sub, a lot of people say the manager didn't get it right yesterday, and as I already say, I'm not looking for excuses, but if there's a flu bug going through your team, you're really up against it there. You don't have the option that you maybe would like. But he certainly got it right towards the end of the game because we were chasing an equaliser and we went and got it, and that was probably down to us getting into a kind of 4-2-4 style shape.
So, up until Joe Hart's error, I think everybody would say the manager's got this right. We're coasting this. We've come out with 61% of the ball. His subs worked. Yeah, I think everybody does expect Kuyo to come off, but the manager's decided to leave him on. So I don't think the manager can legislate for what Joe Hart did or for the non-application of VAR. He's put on a team on there that, for me, didn't look like losing it. At the end, I thought there was only one team that had any chance of winning it after we equalised. There's still 7 minutes to go. People have criticised Ange for being too rigid with his 4-3-3. He shows he doesn't need to do that, and we've got the rewards for it. So we don't know how fit everyone was. He's been forced into it, I suppose, Kevin Johnson his debut, which is maybe had some thinking on it. I would have started Moya ahead of O'Reilly. O'Reilly didn't give us as much as expected going forward, but defensively was pretty good. And Rangers like high balls into the box. We weren't not that tall a team. Maybe that's why O'Reilly started. Just to
love the big switch as well. You always see them going for that big switch diagonal thing that they like. It's always the same ball, and it's like, I know this again. But just in terms of that, Lawrence, as you say there, when he brought Giakoumakis on, and it showed that we've got that flexibility. But we know that manager does like a 4-3-3, but it is there to show Colin. And with his performance coming on yesterday, it didn't have too much an impact on the game, Giakoumakis. But I think it's important when you do that. You're giving yourself a better opportunity at getting a goal. But it was great for that to happen. And I think ultimately, going into our last kind of 10 minutes here, that the fact is clear that we're still 9 points clear. And Stevie here's coming to say everyone, even when we're not firing in all cylinders, we still get a result. And as I said at the start of the show, Colin, to me it was just important that we went to Ibrox and our 9-point advantage wasn't touched or it was extended. And that's how we left. And it's 13 games until the split, and 8 of them are at Celtic Park, which puts you in an absolutely fantastic position. I don't like to be the person that says the title race is over, because I think it's just premature to do that, but Celtic's in a hell of a good position to go and win 2 in a row here.
Absolutely. I mean, this time last year, obviously, we were in the midst of the winter break, forced winter break, or whatever you want to call it, right? What happened this time last year is we were roughly about 6 points behind after the St Mirren game. And I remember being on the show with Kevin and with Brian on the Wednesday, and they're sitting here saying, it's going to be a struggle. We've got to try and get and win every game between now and then. This is, in my opinion, the title was in our hands at that point. There was still 3 games against them. And as simple as it sounds, what I said then was just go and win every game. Now, it's easier said than done to go and win every single game. But when you look at the second half of the season, we weren't far off that. The way that we played the second half of the season last year, we just went in and took every game as it was and tried to get the 3 points. And if you continue to do that, then that 9-point lead that we've got just now, it'll be a lot higher by the time the end of the season comes. Because we are a team, and if you look at it over the last, 12 months or so, we've lost one game out of 38. It's a ridiculous record that we've got. And the one thing about Ange is he doesn't let the team get too far ahead. He's always concentrating on who's the next team and how do we beat them. And it's a great thing to have as part of this team, that everybody wants to beat us because we are beating everybody at the minute. For me, the title is out of their hands. They've only got 2 chances left against us to try and get the points off us. I don't see any other way for them to come back into this. And I think a lot of their fans are accepting that now as well, because they're coming out with this facade about how next year will be different, next year. They've already written off this season. And as you see, you don't want to be the person to say the title's kind of wrapped up, but the way that Celtic's playing just now, it's going to take a massive, massive shift in the way that Scottish football's been over the last 12 months or so for something to change the way or the direction of the title this season.
Yeah, and it'd be a seismic collapse from our point of view if we, let go a 9-point league, which in reality is basically a 10-point league, because I think is it plus 20 goal difference or something.
Yeah.
We've got over Rangers at this point in time, so that's worth another point into the mix. But I totally agree with you, Colin, there. It's within Celtic hands to go and do, and I think just looking at that before the split, 8 of those games being at Celtic Park, 5 being away. I think the toughest place we're probably going to have to go is Tannadice. And that run of fixtures.
Ross County as well.
And Ross County. I know Dundee United are looking as if they're maybe going to turn their form round a wee bit, but at this point in time we're in a great position. And you could see yesterday with the approach from Rangers the last 10 minutes of the game, and they're bringing on James Sands, I think, for a midfielder, and putting him into that kind of just sitting in front of the back four, and then bringing on Scott Wright over, I think, Morelos when he went off rather than Cholak. They wanted to just see it out, and Michael Beale thought he had Celtic beat. And certainly yesterday, that wasn't the case. Celtic at that point restored the 9-point advantage as it was, and we left fairly, I think, content with our afternoon's performance after not being at our best. But Lawrence, that ties us in, for the last 5 minutes or so here. I'll be saying to both you guys on air, I was one of the fortunate ones lucky enough to be at Ibrox yesterday for the game, and that there was once again Celtic supporters pelted by missiles throughout the game, coins, lighters, and particularly one guy with a half bottle of Buckfast. What point are we at now with this? We've said on here before about ticket allocations and whatever else, but we knew last season in April that Rangers couldn't protect Celtic club staff. Remember the bottle coming on to Joe Hart's goalmouth. There was a Celtic staff member hit by a missile at the tunnel in April, and now again this to add to it. When is enough?
Scott Brown was attacked on the pitch, and the guy was put back into the stands to watch the rest of the game. Lee Griffiths had batted his folks weren't taking a corner. On Friday I was saying, what they're going to do different? Is this just deemed an acceptable risk by the SFA, the SPFL, Police Scotland, by Rangers? Are they doing anything different to protect these fans? If they've done something different, it doesn't seem to work. If they haven't done anything different, surely they've left themselves open to be sued by the fans that have been injured. Because this was a known risk with the stuff that you've put in place. It's happened numerous occasions. If you aren't changing anything, you're more or less saying, yeah, this is going to happen. And when it happens, you don't really read about anyone, last season, you didn't read about anyone being arrested for the glass in Joe Hart's penalty box. There's maybe CCTV all over that stand. They know who's in the seats. They seem to, they should be able to identify these individuals, but the fact they don't seem to be able to do anything to make it safer or to hold this, if I'm a Celtic fan that's injured, I'd definitely be taking the court and saying, well, look, it's happened numerous times before. You don't seem to be doing anything different. You seem to be just saying, well, this is what happens if you have to come to Ibrox as an away fan. And I believe it happens, to Hibs fans as well. But
yeah, and other fans, I think, like Partick Thistle fans and whatever years going by, I think they've been pelted with stuff. Yeah.
But aside from that, kind of get back to what you're talking about and say the league is over. And they've got 9 players free to sign for other clubs. Show no commitment. They're 2 superstars that are worth apparently them barely dollars. One of them scored a decent goal. I think was that his first goal in 26 games. This world beater. The league's done. Everybody knows it's done.
Even your dog knows it's done.
He's agreed. Listen, John Beaton thought Celtic were beat, but he couldn't stop the Postecoglou jug on that, no matter what. Some commentators say the league's over.
Lawrence thinks it's over, Colin. But just back to fan behaviour. At previous fans forums, something that was discussed and I think put to Rangers from Celtic was a potential kind of net going over Celtic fans to ensure a safety, and there was some kind of nonsense put back to them about the structure of the stadium and the weight of a net and blah blah blah. But I think when this continues to happen, I'm not saying I wouldn't go back because I go there to support my team. As did everybody else yesterday, but you're starting to now think to yourself, is it worth it for some people? And there was an older gentleman who'd get hit right in the eye by something, and at the end of the game, I think because so many Rangers fans had stayed, unlike previous times, if they'd beaten us, we'd kind of made our way out. If we'd won the game comfortably, they'd already made their way out. Because there was so many in the stadium at the end of the game, they just seemed to go absolutely tonto with stuff. A lot was coming for that Govan stand and the Broomland.
See, to be honest, Declan, we're at the point now where I would tell them to ram their ticket allocation up their backside. I think it's a farce that what they've turned this into. If they don't go back to the way it was previously, which to me, and I believe if you speak to any specific or any police officer with half a brain, they'll tell you that having the full stand is a lot safer than putting 700 people in a corner. Because it was a lot easier to police, it was a lot easier to kind of navigate. The fact that you had to turn up at 10 o'clock yesterday to get in for a 12:30 kickoff tells you how ridiculous this whole thing is.
And just to actually add into that conversation, Celtic fans have been told to car park. So to give everybody an idea of this, behind the Broomland is a car park there, and it was open from 9:30 yesterday. By 10 o'clock it was full. So there's a car park facility in place that isn't, it can't accommodate 700 cars. At minimum, that's how many cars it should accommodate. So cars were then parked along the road, and then come about 10:30, 22:11, we were kettled back into the car park with police officers and horses telling us to get back, even though they'd let everybody stand out in the street. There then became a ring of horses around every Celtic fan, as well as police officers in front of the horses. And then, much like the game in April, they went with the same tactic of using 2 horses' heads to filter fans into the stadium, which is the most farcical thing I think I've ever seen. It's been happening at Tannadice, Fir Park, Ibrox twice. I don't get it. If you talk to any of the police officers with the colourful hats who are the top dogs, they won't shift in their position on it. They say the plans have been made in place before the game. Nothing changes. So it's then everybody pushed into a small area of space, which could cause a crush. I thought yesterday, that was at 20:11. If that was a midweek game and it was lashing a rain and it was dark, it would be even worse. And there was nobody pushing, but the police were making the situation worse. So once you get past these 2 horses' heads, it was then a multitude of stewards between 2 steel walls before you actually get into the game. And then you get all that crap after it.
I mean, Declan, you're paying 50 quid for the pleasure of this as well. It's not as if you're just turning up because it's on your book or whatever. It's 50 odd quid every single time. It's getting to a stage where it's ruining the game for a lot of people. No one should go to the game and come back with an injury like that yesterday. We're simply one bad policing mistake away from another disaster at Scottish football. And on the day where we're remembering those that went to the football and didn't come home, and stuff like this is still happening in 2023, it's a complete farce, and Scottish football should take a look at itself. If they can't provide safety for 700 fans, then it has to go back to the way it was before. And if it doesn't go back to that, then tell them to ram it. Absolutely ram it.
It's a bad situation that we've got in, because the derby spectacle, I think, especially for Sky Sports and whatever, just to always look good when you had a big number of away fans in the ground. And, you know, people who have complained about the policing at the games, people have been hit with the bottles. The guy standing beside me had been hit one of the previous times, and the police officer have told him he should have ducked, which was their approach back to it. So they're not caring at all. So it's a really bad situation that I think we've got ourselves into. And then even after the game, they get held in the bit that you came out of. They had the street shut, so they wouldn't let you back to your car. It's just a complete farce. And it really has got to that point. Thanks to everybody for tuning in on this Tuesday after the game. Really, really appreciate how many people's tuned in, over 800. Collins and Iris, I know you need to head off too. So to everybody who's joined in, Lawrence, Colin, thanks for joining me. We'll be back all day this week in the build-up to the Kilmarnock game. Don't know where I get St Mirren from, covering that. So thanks to everybody for joining us. Hail, hail, and again, enjoy the rest of your new year, and we'll be back again tomorrow. Cheers.